First thing is the prayer and pledge. Scott, mind?
Nope. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this wonderful day. Just praise you for the mighty God you are. And we just pray for your wisdom today, Lord, and that you would just pour it out among us, Lord, that we can discuss the things of this community, Lord. Just be with each of the citizens, Lord. Just guide and direct our time here this morning and this afternoon. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next thing on our agenda is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the April 14th, 2025 meeting.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jay, would you take the vote?
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay, our next item is discussion regarding a memorandum of understanding with Pryor Main Street. There is a copy of this in your packet. And I don't know, Jay, is that printed out here for us?
The packet is not, do you need a copy of
The
it?
MOU.
The MOU is.
Oh, okay.
So the purpose of this part of the meeting is discussing the memorandum of understanding, which would need to be renewed before June 30th. If we're going to do that for the next year, this is to get it in your hands, give you an opportunity to look through it, read through it, ask any questions. Bridget, do you want to come up and say anything about the MOU? This is a change from the MOU in the past. It has some better expectations of Main Street, and it has some guidelines, I believe. So Bridget, if you'd like to take a moment and go through that with us.
Sure, thanks for having me. Like Adam just alluded to, this MOU, the things that are new, it basically expands the expectations of Main Street regarding specifically management of the streetscape project, the facade funding, how that is all going to be utilized, and the expectations for that, activating vacant storefronts, and also implementing some design standards for downtown to ensure that we keep that quintessential charm for the downtown that we want to have. You know, as we all know, a revitalized downtown, it doesn't happen overnight. But it does take a lot of collaboration, and this partnership is just one of many that it will take to make this happen. So we very much look forward to our continued partnership and expanding on that and growing that and really focusing on some more intentionality when it comes to the downtown corridor. Do you guys have any questions?
So again, this is to get it in your hands so that you can take a look at it. We'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting to make any, or to discuss any changes that you guys would like to see, or to approve that going forward into June or into July. So thank you, Bridget.
Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I have a question. First of all, I want to say I'm super excited. I love this MOU, and I think it's been a huge success up to this point. I do have a quick question about the grant management. Thinking about applications, and I'm curious, I don't know if this is a question to the mayor or the whole EDTA, but going forward, because there's some grants coming down the pike, and some that I've recently come across that I'm sure Bridget is aware of, it does say in the notice of funding opportunity that the lead applicant has to be the owner of the property, of the land. And so I'm curious, I know the last TSET grant Main Street wrote on behalf of the city of Pryor, and so I imagine going forward, I'm just curious what the process looks like, because it does mention that they'll manage, that Main Street will manage the grants. I'm just curious about the application process. Can Bridget and her team go ahead and go forth with any grant applications on behalf of the city, considering that the city has approved the streetscape plan going forward, or is the formal process going to be that her, because as you know, the reason why I'm asking, there's a grant that's due in a month from now. So as you all know, these grant timeline, or these, the application timelines have to be quick turnarounds. And so I'm just wondering if Bridget and her team are able to go ahead and tackle an application and that gives her authority through this MOU. I'm aware that this is between the EDTA and the city. I just want to make sure that there's no barrier of having to go before the city to approve a grant application if there's an agreement that the streetscape grant application processes will be taken care of.
Well, you're asking two different
Okay.
questions, I believe. So if it is a city grant that Main Street is going to go after, they would have to get approval from the city council.
Okay,
If it is a grant that they want to apply for on behalf of the EDTA, or that the EDTA wants them to apply for, according to the MOU, they would have to get our express approval for that, because there are some triggers for payments for management of
Right.
those grants, and for, so I think it's a
It's
1 or
almost case-
3% of the grant for them to write the application. And then it is maybe 5% as a payout to them for a grant that is awarded. So one of the things that happened with the streetscape grant is there were no clear approvals of that. That's one reason that there was no payment built into the grant that went back to Main Street. So I would say that if they're going to apply for a grant on behalf of the city, they would have to get with the mayor, and they would have to get approval from the city council if they were going to apply for a grant on behalf of the EDTA or at our request. They would have to get that on our agenda, and we would have to expressly request that. I
okay,
don't think that they can, and now for Main Street themselves, they can go apply for any grant they want,
right,
but in order for it to be on behalf of either one of those entities, it would have to include that entity up front.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because like I said, I know the quick timelines. I wondered if we could remove that barrier, but I understand why.
I'm assuming you're probably talking about the legacy grant that's
Yes.
coming up. That's a very large grant and would be amazing. That would take a lot of collaboration, and it would be like nose to the ground for like the next month,
Right,
which Main Street is looking into on that grant. But a lot of these grants, it's going to be case by case. It's going to be, depends on what the grant is asking for, because a lot of them they have to be municipal owned, along
Right.
with private entity partnerships, and it just depends on what the grant is asking for and what it looks like. But with Main Street, with the way that we're set up and our goals and outcomes for downtown, obviously Main Street doesn't own any of the properties downtown, so
Right.
anything that we do, any grant that we work with is going to be in collaboration with the city, with the EDTA, and any entities that have a stakeholdership.
for sure.
But having that express or explicit approval for the grant was a condition that we put into the last MOU to protect the EDTA from Main Street, not anything against any organization, but we did that with
Right.
anybody, from just being able to go out and apply for grants and then say, well, here's the bill.
Right,
And then, Mayor, I think there's been a couple of times that we have we have gone after grants, either the EDTA or the city, that the research and discussions with Bridget and Main Street, it was more beneficial to use a third party outside grant writer in order to meet those target deadlines and
Right.
in order for them to already have knowledge of that grant. Is that?
That's correct, yeah.
And the relationships that we have and having those conversations are important, because we want to be working on a grant that also the city is working on, and
Right.
it looks disjointed, so.
yeah, makes total sense. I was just wondering if we could expedite the process, but I totally understand all the justification. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action regarding an MOU with Land Hogs LLC and Hawkins Family Limited Partnership for use of the green space on Rose Street for a 12-month period, which would begin June 1st. So that was in the packet that Jay sent out. It is, for all intents and purposes, a exact copy of the MOU from last year that applied specifically to bluegrass. We did remove the terms bluegrass and festival and just made it events for Pryor Creek Events, it's the entity that we created under the EDTA or the trade name. I have talked with both Dr. Fullerton and John Hawkins, and both of those gentlemen were in agreement with the terms. And again, other than replacing Festival and Bluegrass with Pryor Creek events, this is the same thing. What we will take on is, again, if anybody is going to host an event over there, they would have to get approval from us to use it under the MOU. And there would have to be liability insurance that provided for coverage for the property owners. And that is something that later in the agenda, we have an item and we've looked at that cost. The reason that it has to go through a different insurance than the city's is because the city does not have title to that property. So in order for it to be covered under OMAG's policies, the city would have to have title to it. One thing, once we have this 12-month agreement in place, Mayor and I have talked about reaching back out to OMAG and seeing if there is a rider that we can put on there, allowing for that, recognizing that lease term that it is for a 12-month period, and see if that would make any difference in extending the city's existing liability coverage. But for now, it would be up to each one of the entities that wanted to have an event on there to provide that insurance. And in exchange, what we are doing with Hawkins and Dr. Fullerton is we have agreed to maintain that location as far as mowing, keeping the, adding some additional sand and maybe some sod to level it off. Right now, I know it is a little high, but it's because there's been a massive amount of rain the last few weeks, and things are growing quick, and you can't mow. So, and then, you know, we'll pick up the brush and things like that. Houston, I think, mowed it the first time. We're all taking turns figuring out, you know, when to come by and pick up limbs and stuff, but I don't see there being a big expense for any of those items. Any questions or thoughts, or? Okay, if not, can we get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. J, would you take the vote?
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordo,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
Okay, our next item, discussion and possible action to allow the library to use the green space under the MOU. So this would be for the newly created MOU. The library is kicking off their summer program,
Summer reading program, correct.
and it would be on June 5th.
5th, I believe, and it'll be quite a big event. They've got a lot of vendors and tractors and combines and fire engines and you name it. They've got it all planned out to be out there, so.
I've talked with their representative. They don't plan on any bounce houses or anything like that. It'll be fairly low key. They'll use the green space for the kickoff of it. But this would be the first event under the MOU or under our approval of use of the green space for the MOU. So if you guys have any other questions or not, we can make a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to allow the library to use the green space.
Just for one day, or
Just for one day, yes, sir.
probably should have that in there for what day it is.
I amend my motion to approve for June 5th.
Let me make sure it's June 5th.
I'm pretty sure it is. Right, it should be on the council agenda. It just didn't have it when we posted this.
Yeah, I have it on June 5th.
Okay, so it's June 5th. Okay, so we have was that a second, Fred?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you take the vote, please?
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordo,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Next item is discussion and possible action regarding an expenditure in the amount of $325 for liability insurance on the green spaces required by the MOU for the usage by the library. At this point, that would be an expense for the EDTA. I have let the library know that expense would be there, and we are requesting them to pay that. I have also said that if the library was unable to secure those funds, that I would help them myself raise the funds. So the EDTA would write the check for $325, and then either the library or somebody will come up with the $325 to reimburse the EDTA.
Can you buy my insurance?
No. So if we can get a motion and a second on that, please.
I so moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, Jay, if you would take the vote.
Sorrell,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. And I didn't say I would buy it, I said I would get donations for it.
You do the same for mine.
I don't care where it comes from.
Oh.
But mine's a little bit more than $325.
Yeah. Discussion regarding the structural review of the community, of the Graham Community Building. So this is on here to give everybody an update of where we are with the Graham Community Building review that the city council asked for us to perform. One of the first things that we talked about and were adamant on was getting a structural review. We have reached out through Main Street regarding that structural review. They have is it the Commerce Department? So the Department of Commerce has expended all of their funds for those structural reviews for this fiscal year. They have us on the list to do that review beginning with the new fiscal year in July. One of the things that we've gone back and asked is, where are we on that list? And, you know, we're on a list that starts in July that we won't get a report until the next July is one thing, but being on the list to get it started in July and we have a report by, say, August or September, that might be reasonable. In the meantime, we have started reaching out. There's some other avenues that Main Street is aware of that provide those structural reviews. Some of the estimates of costs that we've received are, you know, $5,000 for the review. If that's just walk in the door, look around, say, you know, it looks here, or if you really want a real one, it's gonna get up to about $10,000. So in talking with a few of the city councilors and talking with the mayor, we thought it was reasonable to wait that until we got some more of those answers before we went forward with purchasing our own structural review. Mayor, would you like to add anything on that?
No, I think it's just, we want to make sure we're taking the right avenue with that. You know, it's, the building has been kind of a controversy the last couple months, in terms of how we should fix it, what we should do, where we should put our money. You know, we have spent quite a bit of money on that building in the last year. I think we spent 60+ thousand on new HVAC systems. We've had days where the elevator will drop a foot. We've had electrical issues. We've had gas lines. Jared had to have his guys come in and sniff out all the gas lines because there was a natural gas leak. And what we found was that you know, the lines were run through the concrete floors without sleeves on them. All the joints and nipples had to be replaced, and it's really just starting to show its wear. So rather than just jump in and you know, full bore this thing with all the money that we have in the bank, I think it's wise that we find the best way to attack it. And so, as far as it goes with me, full support of the EDTA, waiting or doing whatever we need to do to make sure that that building is taken care of, however you guys see fit.
So any other comments anybody would have on the grant?
People just need to understand the word patience.
Correct.
You know, it took years for it to get in the condition it's in.
Right.
And like the mayor said, you don't want to jump in and start doing things piecemeal when you don't really know what the issue is. So we would just ask people to understand patience, because that's what's going to have to happen here.
You know, say like just for the drywall on the inside, you know, a lot of people, that's kind of the big thing is in the community hall, you know, the walls. To pull those walls off and put up an element of sheetrock or something comparable, we're looking at about 55 to 60,000 just for that. So, and that's not even touching the kitchen. So here we are already 150,000 in, and all we've done is air conditioners and walls. There's still floors, there's still leaky windows, there's a lot that needs to go into a building that's pushing 100 years old, so.
So we'll try to remind everybody as you're hearing about it that we're trying to be very methodical. We're also trying to take care of what funds are expended, and 0 versus 10,000 is a big difference.
Yep.
So, okay, next item, discuss, possibly recommend council action regarding the branch tower lease agreement with the city. So at the same time that we were asked to look at the Graham community, we were asked about the branch tower lease, which is the cell phone tower that's over by Pete's Drive-In. So in your packet is the current lease plus the offer The current lease it began in 2016. It calls for $600 a month beginning then, lease payments for the first 5 years. And then after that, it would go to, it would increase by 10% per year based on what the previous payment was. So currently it is $660. At the 11th year, it will go up to $726, then $798, and so forth. The total lease payments under that 50-year agreement is $573,744.18. To date, that company has paid the city $67,680, which leaves a remainder of $506,064.18 to be paid out over the 50-year, the remaining 39 years of that lease. The offer, or the lease also calls for them to provide mowing and upkeep services at the hidden park. So there is a real cost to that if the city was to take that on. I don't really have an estimate for that, but it's a fairly large sized area. It would cost probably somewhere $500 to $750 a month to mow that, or for the city to have that mowed. The offer that they are making is for a one-time lump sum settlement of, or purchase of $177,000, and that would be for a 99-year lease, beginning now for another 99 years. It would drop the requirement for them to mow the hidden park. One of the other things that we kind of looked at, and we'd have to have some more conversations on this, but the lease is specifically for roughly a 50 by 50 space. So some of the questions that have been asked are, what about those dead trees that are outside the fence? I believe those dead trees are still on city property. We'd have to verify that, Mayor, but they do maintain the grass on the outside of it. I think, this is my opinion, and then we'll open it up, but I think that $177,000 is a pretty small amount when the full amount that they're gonna still pay out over the term is almost $500,000. And I understand that the city cannot use that full $500,000 in their budget, but $177,000 payment today, and hope that we don't, or that we can get a return equal to the $7,000 that we're getting a year now, is kind of a big wish. I know that Scott reached out to Branch and asked some questions, and I think that, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you pointed out that perhaps their maintenance people were not taking care of the hidden park, the comment back was, well, I'm paying somebody, please let me know if they're not doing it. I went out there a few days later, and it was mowed and been taken care of. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I haven't checked in. I mean, you told me it was mowed, so I figured he got on to somebody, so.
And they also said, as far as the offer, that this was a routine thing that his accounting department did. They would take the list of leases that they have, and they would apply some time value of money to it and send out an offer and say, we'll purchase it now for this. I know accounting wise, there were some changes since this lease was signed that requires companies to account for leases on their balance sheet differently than at this time. So it is beneficial for a company to make a change and just do an outright purchase that maybe wasn't there before. But any comments or thoughts from the trustees?
$177,000 sounds like a lot of money right up front, but you're right, the city would never make that back. I mean, you could take that money and invest it and take what we're getting overall. And there's a reason why they're willing to do this for $177,000, because it would be a great economic savings to them. I personally don't see how we can recommend to the city that they take that buyout offer. To me, from an economic standpoint, even though it stretches it out, just doesn't make sense. You know, maybe somebody wants to try to negotiate with them, figure out what a number would be that would work, and negotiate back with them and see if that's what they would do. But to take this figure, well, here's the banker. I mean, and that just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
And Mayor, I know you did do some negotiation with them and did move them up from,
Oh, I think when this first hit the desk, it was like less than 120. And so they just kept coming up, and finally we threw it in front of the council for discussion. And that's when we were at, their offer went from whatever, between 120 something to 177. And the council decided that this would be the best way to take it. I'm with you. I think 177 is not even in the, it won't even cover the labor of us to maintain the property.
What would the city do with the money? If the city just put it in the budget and spent it's gone,
Yeah.
well, and if you invest it, you're not gonna make back what you're getting right now. So,
okay, so would everybody be okay with a motion or with a recommendation to council to not accept the purchase of the lease and to continue as is? And if that's the motion and the recommendation, then I'll write that up and get it sent to the city council.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Okay, Jay, if you would.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Swordall.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, discussion regarding a request from the Ordinance and Insurance Committee to review term limits and attendance requirements for the EDTA trustees. So the Ordinance and Insurance Committee asked about a couple weeks ago for us to take a look at this. They had some, I honestly think it became widely known after Larry termed out of the EDTA that the EDTA was, I think, the only committee or the only group in Pryor that had term limits. And there was some concern from the O&I committee that that Pryor would potentially lose some good candidates on this trust just because of term limits. This is a part of an initial discussion. I want to make it very clear that this is not a self-serving thing that originated from any of the trustees. This originated from the
O&I.
From the O&I. And I truly do believe it became a shock when it was on the agenda to reappoint Larry, and I had to call and say, Mayor, we can't
Right.
do that because of this particular provision in the trust. Along with that, I had this comment well, there's no clear way, or there's no attendance requirements for any trustee. Right now it says that through a unanimous vote of the trustees that a trustee could be removed, but there is nothing in the trust agreement that says you have to attend a certain number of meetings in order to continue on the trust without being removed. So that was another request from the O&I, was to take a look at those attendance requirements. The council has attendance requirements. Mayor, I don't remember what those are, but you have to attend a certain number.
Right, and we're looking at that. Chase was actually looking into that over the weekend. We're waiting for that exact on how that works, because there's state level, and there's above the council laws out there that we've got to adhere to, but I think it's 2 and your 3rd in a 4-month period, or and so that's where we're looking at, some possibilities that we may have an absence for an extended amount of time, and can we legally waive that ruling? And so what we're looking at is trying to figure out how that all plays into, if you miss, say, 6 meetings in a 2-month period, or 4 meetings. I'm sorry, that's not possible because we don't have that many. Say you miss them all over that 4-month period, then you should be removed. I know in the past we've had circumstances where a councilman got a job, and that job required travel that took them out, and it was just kind of overlooked. But we want to, again, follow the rules and regulations. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right, and we understand how that works. If you have somebody who's been absent for, the last 10 meetings, should they remain on that committee or council? And I think if you're absent and you're not fulfilling the role, we need to make sure that your representation of the community is filled with somebody who's going to be there to represent you. Represent the people, not you.
So I think this will be something that we have on the agenda for at least a couple of meetings to look at some different options. I would think one of those would be building in some requirements for attendance, and if there's a certain number of absences that you're just automatically off as a trustee, and we publish your position for somebody else, but then being sensitive to some circumstances and not creating our own issues. But if something does come up and, you know, we say 4 meetings and somebody comes up in the 4th meeting, they're sick or something happens, then through a vote of the trustees, we can say, okay, this meets the criteria, or we put the criteria into the trust to begin with. You know, it has to be a sickness, a natural disaster, something like that. The other thing is that, you know, we have an open seat right now that Larry Williams previously filled, and we have talked about it, we have published it, but there has been nobody step up and volunteer for that position. So we also don't want to run into a situation where we have an EDTA that is doing a lot of positive things, and then just because of term limits, we look up one day and there's right now, I would be up here by myself because everybody else will term out before me. So if nobody steps up to replace you guys, I'm here by myself. And I don't want that to happen. And I don't have a doubt that we'll find somebody, but those are some of the situations that the O&I brought up. So any other discussion on that before we move on and then bring back some potential wording at
Yeah.
future meetings?
I think you need to have, just bring back specific wording for the next meeting to see if we want to make that recommendation. That's what,
Yeah, this was, again, just to get it out there so that council and the O&I knew we were serious about it, and I didn't want to throw something on an agenda and said, hey, here's some new wording, and everybody go, what the heck's this? The next item, discussion and possible action to order checks for the festival account at the following quantities and prices. So I did ask Darla to look into what checks would cost for the festival account this year, or last year for the festival. We tried to save a few $100s and write all of the checks out of the EDTA account and then do a transfer each time from the festival account. Those transfers didn't occur as the checks were written, so Treasurer Ballou and I have been trying to track those back and figure those out throughout this last few months. We've got it all tracked and figured out, but it would just make things a lot easier if we could keep those two accounts completely separate and just write the checks. So my recommendation would be to just buy the 100 checks at $234.99 and move forward.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, Jay, if you take the vote.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Okay, next item is discussion and possible action regarding the establishment of a marketing budget for Pryor Creek marketing materials such as flyers, banners, and stickers not to exceed $1,500. And I'm going to turn this over to the mayor to talk about.
That's fine.
This is something we've been working on through Pryor Creek Events, Main Street, and the chamber for some time.
All right, so the whole idea is that as we've gone around and we look and we talk about economic development, you know, the comment that we keep hearing is, you know, what is Pryor bringing to what is our product, what do we have? What we're finding is we go out to events such as the Main Street Day at the Capitol or going and discussing, we have no brand for this, you know, for all practical purposes. We have our city crest, but in my opinion, that's not a brand. We don't have anything that really says, you know, why Pryor, why are we interested, what are, even at the most generic basic levels. And so what we've looked at is, would it behoove the city at this point to come up with a brand? You know, as we look at where we are economically, right? We always think we need homes, we need homes, we need homes. We have a lot of homes that aren't being filled. People just right now are not buying homes. We have developments on the sides, but we also have a lot of a lot of built, established retail facilities throughout the city. We have a need for something that says, here's Pryor, here's how we're gonna market our city. And what we're finding is that we don't have that. We don't have, flyers like, well, this is a good one, we don't have this stuff. So if we were to go out to retailers or go out to, say, these conventions where franchisees and developers and things are at, what are we taking? What are we taking with us? What are we putting on the table? If we're putting up a table, do we have a table that looks great? One of the things I'm gonna talk about the Main Street Day at the Capitol, one of the communities that stuck out to me was Luther, Oklahoma. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's pretty small. And they branded themselves so well. Adam, you saw it was almost like they had something they were super proud of, and they were gonna sell that town to you come, hell or high water. And we need that. We need something if we're gonna grow, if we're gonna be appealing. I've had developers come to and say, guys, kind of get it together. You need to bring something to the table. And so in this economic development marathon that we're in, part of that race is we need to market ourselves a little better. We need to, for example, one of the things that I want to share, and I'll just pass this down. This has been a hot topic. Sorry, I got 10 copies here, but we've got festivals and events coming up, and our welcome signs are very unattractive. You can't even read them. They're awful. So we've reached out to, I've talked with Jerry Cowan at Elite Manufacturing, and he's willing to help us come up with some new signs, at least for now, for the north and south corridors of Highway 69. That would replace these. So we went out, we looked. These signs are basically hanging on L brackets. The wood beams and the brick pillars are solid. So what we talked about, Jerry and I talked about, were much like the tornado monument, where it's the steel with the aluminum backer that makes it kind of pop. He would be able to manufacture those super easily and powder coat them, and then they would require almost minimal maintenance. And so I think as we do that, the idea, this is just a concept, we take that pass down, something super simple, but we could also take it, turn it into a brand, and it becomes what we throw out to basically to market Pryor. Just simple, Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, welcome home. But with a shiny background behind the lettering, everything that's white would be that aluminum backing. We could hang those on the signs, but we could also very easily turn that into a brand that we can market our town a little bit better with. So, and then additionally, we would create, and Adam and I talked about this. This is the one I took with us to the Main Street Day at the Capitol. This was a quick put together, so please recognize it as that, but something like this in a foldable brochure like Bridget brought in that goes with it, that talks about all the aspects of Pryor, not just our downtown, but our affordable housing that's available, the schools from the elementary, the K-12, all the way up through the colleges, our shopping, we've got, the district, we've got renowned festivals and events that we should be putting out there, but just something that kind of gives where we're at on the map, what we have to offer. We have, I'm going to say, probably still the best utilities in the state. So why are we not taking that stuff and throwing it out there as we try to market our town? And this hasn't been anything that we've ever really, that I can remember in my 10 years with the city, put any effort into doing. And so in talking with Adam, I've talked with individuals at the district, I've talked with Bridget, I've talked with the chamber. They are on board with taking whatever brand we come up with and making that our brand. Now you can still incorporate, Main Street can still incorporate in their events their Main Street stuff, but if you're representing Pryor, that brand is what you're taking out there. Much like Luther, Ardmore, Duncan, Durant, Tahlequah, every community that we've seen markets their town. It is a part of the economic development. And so I think that's what we want to start with is getting that out there, working with Elite to get these signs replaced, and having something that we can go out to those places where the people we need in our town are and try a little bit harder to reel them in and say, here's what we are Pryor Creek, period, the end. And we want you to be here, we want to show you. At the same time, and I'll keep it short, I'm sorry, at the same time, as we walked our downtown the other day, you know, one of the comments made was, well, you don't have any for rent signs on your empty buildings. Well, they look trashy. Those rent signs look trashy. Okay, well, you know, vinyl's cheap, right? We can come up with a standardized for lease that we use in all of those, and with technology, you can easily link it to the information on that. But I think we need to put some emphasis into what we have, what we're bringing to the table, and what our brand is. So I'll take any discussion on that you guys have.
Is the $1,500, is that for the signs?
No, that'll be for flyers, whatever it has on their list.
Flyers, stickers. So
Banners,
one of the things that,
table
and
runners.
I think Bridget will agree with this. One of the things that really stood out when we were at the Main Street Day at the Capitol, and you know, I've been up there several times for other events at the Capitol. One thing that really stood out for every community was that they all had stickers, they all had brochures that talked about their community. And it seems kind of against the way everything goes now with do it on social media and do all these other things. But you see some of those communities that are smaller than us that have really knocked it out of the park, and they're marketing themselves. They're pointing out all of the
Well, I think like Muskogee at their table had Girl Scout cookies and you know, you ask why, well, because that's where they're from, that's what they had. I keep bringing up Luther, they had t-shirts and pillows and all of it, and it was the same logo on everything that they had. If you look at one of the things that I think it was Durant did, they're putting in a park, and they created a trifold brochure that broke down the cost of that and what it was going to be and how you can and to donate and do. But on the back of that was that Durant brand. This is Durant. This is what we're doing. It's that marketing piece that says, you know, if we want the developers to come here, we're up against some tough stuff. Broken Arrow is hard to compete against. They just are. You know, one of our developers said to me the other day, Broken Arrow gave him the last developable piece of land, and he was going to put his attention into that, and Pryor will come later. You know, I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that we're second, but we are right now. We are on every radar that can be out there for the announcements that came out last week. For or against them, that's irrelevant. We're on the radar. If we're going to be on the radar and people are going to be looking at Pryor, they need to see things that showcase what we have and why we're good, or, you know, we're going to lose a golden opportunity to put ourselves out there. And so being economic development and things, I think that's the appropriate route to go.
My wife and I go to a lot of home shows, and we see a lot of little towns setting up with booths, and I think, where's ours? You know, and you think, okay, you know, are they really getting anything? But it puts you out there, and they're handing out free stuff, they're handing out stuff, and I think it's, you know, it's time. It's past time.
I have this is funny, if you go in my office, I have a yellow peanut, and it was from Durant, because Durant has the world's largest peanut. Now, I'm not saying that we need to get squishy peanuts to pass around, but it's those things. Luther, I will remember Luther. I remember those little towns, you know, that took something. Tahlequah had their little tiger cookies, right? Because that's something that they have. We lack in every aspect right now, and we are a shining star in the global community with the developments that are coming. If we want people to come here, we want those businesses to help increase our revenues, we're going to have to invest a little in marketing our community.
I'm excited.
No, go ahead.
I'm very excited about all these efforts. I want to thank everyone who put all this stuff together. I went to a Main Street conference a couple years ago and got this sticker called Love Where You Live. And I think whatever logo or marketing you guys come up with, I think it would be awesome to put a Pryor logo of some sort with a Love Where You Live sticker. I have an idea. I'm super in support of this. I am just also curious, is there a reason why there's a period after Pryor Creek?
Because it's a statement. Prior Creek, period, that's why. Everybody's asked me about that. I feel like it's a statement. Jay said it's not a full sentence, so we don't need a
That's
period.
what I was thinking.
But I think the idea is that it's meant to make a statement. Prior Creek,
Does it make a statement, or does it make us look like we don't know our things?
no, I think it makes a statement.
Okay. I make a motion to,
Well, I think Dawn had.
oh, sorry, go ahead, so sorry.
something else.
And have we thought about hiring a branding company? You know, you got them in Tulsa all over the place that help brand. $1,500 isn't get you much.
Not for branding, no.
You know, even for material, $1,500 is,
But it will give us the ability, our thought there was it would give us the ability to
Create
prove
the
it
concept.
and start it and create without spending a ton of money and then finding out we did it incorrectly.
well,
But,
that's
you
why,
know-
in my opinion, you would hire somebody
Well,
to help you, that works on it day to day.
Well, I'm not opposed.
Yeah.
and I'm not disagreeing with any of this stuff, and of course, I'm not quite sure how much of this works. I mean, if you have a peanut to hand out, or Luther's handing this stuff out, or Muskogee's handing a bunch of stuff, I don't see a lot of stuff going into Muskogee, Oklahoma. So I don't know if that's really working or not. I don't know if, so I'm not disagreeing, and maybe that we don't need to do some of this, but just throwing $1,500 at it right now doesn't really do anything for me. And we talk about this brand. Well, who's making the decision on what the brand is? Who, that's why I agree with Dawn. I mean, should we not maybe have some group meeting? I mean, Main Street has experience at this. I would assume the Chamber has experience at this. And if you want somebody to sit down and help design and get some information from, I bet you can go to the schools, and they have students that would love to work on this and could probably have some very ingenious ideas of putting stuff together. So I'd rather see us go that route and put something together, and let's have a meeting with this, with Main Street, and bring the Chamber. Go talk to the schools, see what they can offer before we just have this discussion. And, I mean, because I don't know if I want that to be the brand, I don't know if I want this to be, and to throw $1,500 and say, oh my gosh, we're on the way, I don't think so.
Well, I think it's important to know, Fred, and I agree with you, and I agree with Dawn, and the idea is, how do you present it for the discussion? What do you come to the discussion with, something or nothing? So the idea is, the discussion needs to be, what direction do we want to go and to what extent? I think it sounds like everybody's on board with the concept. The discussion that Adam and I had was, let's get it on the agenda to discuss. To put it on an agenda, if I had not come with anything, it would have been, well,
Oh, and I'm not arguing
Right,
with that.
so what I'm saying is-
$1,500, just say, we approve $1,500, what stickers are we buying?
Right.
What are we
So-
buying? Let's get the people together to brainstorm this, us, Main Street, the Chamber, bring in the school, you will be amazed what the school has.
and
to
I
offer
would
in
one
town.
hundred percent support the
Before we
kids
just
being on
say,
it.
well, here's $1,500 and let's go.
So
No, let's put the right people together and let's decide where we go.
the conversation has been out for a little bit to get it on this agenda.
And that's what you just did.
Nobody in our community you'd be silly not to bring the kids in on this. I have 100% always supported that. I think my urgency is, and I can back my urgency off if that's the direction we go, is that we have festivals coming up, we have events coming up, we've got, next year, I think there's a big, Main Street thing that's gonna be coming through here. We have all these things developed. How long do we wait and how long do we take getting this up and off the ground? I think that's part of my discussion is, can this be an urgent thing that we've put the committees together, or we make a decision to hire somebody now to get the ball moving so that we're not this time next year going, we should have
I understand. I think we start putting it together. To me, $1,500, that's like throwing at the wall. What does that do? To me, it does nothing. You start moving in this direction, you put the right people together. And then you go back to a word we used earlier, patience.
Correct.
And you put the right people together, and you come up with what is going to be the brand, and then decide. I mean, it would be nice if there was a permanent budgeting for a promotion, for promotional materials to use for the city of Pryor. And so that, I think that's the start, not this. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Do you know of any branding outfits?
Off the top of my
Pardon?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
But
I'm sure you can find one through the Main Street program.
So would this board be willing to make the decision on who to bring to the table so that we can get the ball moving on it?
Oh, I think it's obviously, I mean, I can give you some, right now, us.
Yeah, let's do it.
Main
Let's-
Street, Chamber, the schools, I mean, again, it is amazing what those kids can put out. And I think the idea is they went, so the schools, Main Street, Chamber, us.
Does the school have a contact that we can go to and say do it, or is this Coach Day
Your main
thing?
contact is Lisa Muller.
Right, okay.
I'd be more than happy to talk to her.
Yeah, would you mind?
Yeah.
That would be great.
So, since summer's coming up, just thinking of timeline, do we think, should the groups that Fred mentioned have an idea to give to the kids to go off of? So should the other entities meet, and maybe including Lisa?
And Jared, do you?
I got a 1 o'clock meeting, but I will say that if you put some more GRD on this, I could probably find you money.
And GRDA is really important.
That was a great idea.
That was.
Bye, Karen.
See you guys, sorry.
But yeah, if we're gonna bring the kids in, which I love that idea as well, I wonder though, if the entities that have been mentioned should get together to give the kids a direction of what the branding should be. So they can come up with what it looks like, but maybe the idea comes from the entities involved.
Yeah. No, you're not gonna get any arguments from me. The idea is I want the discussion to be out there. I want everybody to know that it's time for Pryor to brand themselves. I don't care if it's something that 3 entities come up with, the school's design, or we hire it out. The emphasis needs to be that it's time for us to come up with a product. It's time for Pryor to market themselves. If we have look, if everything that's been said is music to my ears, you know, a budget for it, doing it, I want the discussion started, but I also don't want it to be one of those things where we get lost in committee meetings for a year because it's just, we're gonna miss a window. And we've got to do that. So if we're gonna do it, I think there needs to be some kind of a time frame. You know, do we want this to be wrapped up by summer? Do we wanna, you know, by the end of summer, I'm sorry, do we wanna, you know, I don't wanna carry it into 2027 and still being like, well, remember the day when we were gonna do it.
Well, I understand,
so.
but we don't know where that's going until we get
Right.
these groups together and have the discussion initially and make those decisions there for recommendation back to this.
Yeah, I'll still fight for the branding company, and that is, they can lead that discussion. That's what they're there for.
Well, and I'd like to hear first though, too, before we do that, what does Main Street, I mean, look at, obviously, somebody's putting together something for them. The Chamber, I'll bet the Chamber has material, I bet we could talk to them and bring them in too, you know?
I
So
haven't seen it.
we've had that
You
discussion
know, and
amongst,
the school and different things it does, Cross has branded itself, I think, really well.
So we've had that
Get
discussion
group together and
between-
have that discussion.
between Main Street, Adam, Houston, and I. And the thing, what you get is, you get the chamber doing Pryor Area Chamber. You get Main Street, Farkas, but there's nothing that says Pryor. What is it? So, listen, I'm all ears, I'm all open. I want the ball to start moving.
Well, and I think this gets it moving much more than let's put $1,500 in an account. We're gonna buy stickers that look like what? We're gonna buy brochures that look like what? We're gonna put a sign up that looks like what? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta do the brand first.
So we'll get something together for the next meeting.
And I will talk
And
to-
have a plan, and if you'll talk to,
I will talk to
Dr.
the
Moore?
schools. I think Main Street's probably gonna shake their heads, yes, that they would be interested in
oh,
doing it.
she's already
Right.
involved in this.
There we go.
Like, she put us up to it.
And, okay, well then, let's get more of the trust people involved with these people and decide where we're going.
Do we want somebody to research firms?
I think Northeast Tech, this office could probably use some help with some branding and some design work.
And before we start researching firms, I think we get these people together and decide, is that what we want to do? There may be knowledge amongst those firms, who we contact, before we just start going off in individual directions before we get these people together.
I think we bring in Northeast Tech,
Yeah?
Yeah.
GRDA,
GRDA.
you know, like I said, I'll talk to Lisa and, you know, talk to Houston. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to participate.
Okay, so we'll do that and have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Wonderful.
Okay, next item, discussion and possible action to request bids or information or authorize purchases for components of the Pryor firing range. So this is part of the money that was donated by the Cherokee Nation. The next component that we have to order, we've approved the purchases of the piping. We haven't seen those bills yet, so you might,
Okay.
if Buddy's gotten those, you might send them out so we can get that approved. The next purchase would be gravel, and, you know, we're, from the estimates, we need about $4,000 approved for gravel. That would be for the driveway coming into it. It's kind of the only request we have there. We've asked if the street department may end up being the ones that haul it. We've also asked if GRDA would approve having their trucks haul that in. They're the ones that have done the dirt work so far. So that would, if GRDA does it, it's about half the number of loads of trucks. If the city does it, the dump trucks are smaller, so it would be, you know, more loads. But the mayor's talked to Buddy.
So street department's got a pretty open window right now that they could put somebody on hauling loads back and forth. That would save us a couple $100 per load. And again, all of that's gonna come out of the funds that were given to us from the various donations, Cherokee Nation, et cetera. So, Buddy and his crew are absolutely not opposed to hauling that. It's just 7 tons at a time versus, you know, 14 to 17. And if the quarry brings it out, they've got drivers that can do that, but I think if we can do it on our own, we save some money and do that the smart way.
Okay, remind me, this is Cherokee Nation money.
Cherokee Nation money, they donated $107,000. We have spent $8,000 of that.
Why is it, brief explanation, remind me, why is it under our control?
That was the condition of the donation, was that it was the EDTA that was dispersing the funds.
And so we're requesting bids for what?
So-
Who's putting these specs together? Who's doing it?
So all we're doing at this point is approving under the current state contract price, $4,000 worth of gravel.
Okay. Okay, so it's already been bid.
Yes, yeah, it's
Okay.
under state contract. It's
Okay.
already, the city already has the contract.
Okay.
We're just approving the $4,000 in funds.
That's all we're doing.
Yes, sir.
And then we're talking about what though, make sure you understand this, the street department moving
The street department hauling it
from where to where?
from Pryor Stone
Okay,
to
Dog Pound Road.
Dog Pound Road.
okay. Just word of caution. Make sure you get appropriate legal advice on that, whether it is appropriate for the street department to do that. I remember years ago issues with city material being used to make golf carts pass at the golf course. And I think an audit not having very excited about that. So
I'll check
that's
it
just a
out.
word of caution.
No, appreciate it. I'll
I
check
would
into
make
it.
sure, get that legal approval from city council, that is proper to use street department to do that, because it's not a street department. So, just a word of caution. I think you make sure you
I
cover
gotcha.
that base.
I got you. We'll check into it. Thank you.
So is that a motion for the 4,000?
Sure. I'll second it.
Okay, Jay, if you would take that vote.
I'm so sorry, what was that motion?
$4,000 for gravel to be dispersed from the firing range funds.
Okay. That was Fred and Scott. Anderson,
Yes.
Sorrell,
Yes.
Dur,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Did I say yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're adjourned.